Everybody, welcome to the UGASports live show. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by former Georgia Bulldogs head coach Jim Donnan and technical advisor extraordinaire Dayne Young. We appreciate you joining us on this 8:15 version of the UGASports live show. We wanted to wait and see what the playoff rankings were going to look like. Plus, we had some other stuff going on earlier in the day. So we're glad for all of you that can join us tonight. It means a lot to us, and we know you could spend your time on a Tuesday evening and other ways, but we're glad you were here. So the rankings are out. Georgia's number 2, Ohio State's number 1, Michigan 3, Florida State 4. Very interesting, Coach. Let me get your take on this. I mean, I'm glad to see Tulane at 23. It kind of makes me happy. But give me your thoughts on the rankings right now.
Yeah, just listening to the people that. Particularly Boo Corrigan, the guy that runs the thing, is the chairman. He said that Ohio State's strength of schedule, which is true. I mean, their strength of schedule is 20th, ours is 90th, and they do have the win over Notre Dame at Notre Dame, even though Notre Dame's fallen a little bit and they beat Penn State. So, but it's still early. There's a lot to be played. We've got some ranked teams coming up. If Tennessee ends up beating Missouri. If not, they probably won't be ranked very high. But certainly Ole Miss presents a real challenge. But, you just got to keep winning. And the problem this year is I think all of the top 5 big conferences are going to have a team that might be close to being undefeated. If Washington keeps going, Florida State keeps going, one team from the Big Ten, and, Pac-12 we mentioned, and the Big 12's got Texas, who had strength, big win over Alabama. Alabama looms, like a team we're going to have to beat to get in the playoffs, more than likely, because I don't know if 2 teams can get in, or because of that, what I just said. But it's going to be interesting. But what we got to do is just play out our schedule.
Georgia took a big step towards making it to the playoffs and facing Alabama this past Saturday when they beat the Missouri Tigers. Close game. Georgia wins by 9. Kind of nip and tuck there for a while. For all the folks that joined us on the Georgia Watch Along show, you could tell that Coach had some good analysis. He was dead on and calling a lot of the plays before they happened. I know he doesn't think that's crazy, but I always do. It always impresses the hell out of me when he does that. Based on formation and down and distance and stuff like that. He knows what he would call, and lots of times that's the right call. But we also get a lot of good analysis from Coach and kind of explain what was going on. Coach, give me your thoughts on this Missouri game, because to me, the biggest part of the game, or the biggest play of the game, and I know there's the Nazir Stackhouse interception, but it was a freshman kicker hitting a 48-yarder to make it a 9-point game. And it just seemed to me like that to me was it. I mean, it was tough. There was a lot of things going back and forth, and the 2 interceptions that Georgia had against Brady Cook. But that field goal to me was the play of the game. It was just
he continues to be very good in the clutch, and our play calling is around that. We third down calls where we set up the field goals, which I thought was pretty good by Bobo. I mean, don't take a chance on turning it over. You got an automatic 3 probably, based on the way this guy's kicking, although that last one wasn't. But as far as just an overview on the game, the first half was back and forth. We weren't prepared to stop Brady Cook's scrambling ability, which kept alive so many times. I just watched the play back again. And then, we didn't convert on some plays that were there for, and we got beat a couple of times on pass rush. But going into the half, Georgia always feels good, and I do too, because we're the best conditioned team that I've been around. If you look at our stats, it's like 100 and something to 13 in the third quarter on the season, and then the fourth quarter we just put them to sleep. So there's a lot to be said about our conditioning, our halftime adjustments. We came out and scored 14 points in the second quarter. We didn't punt in the second half, and we capitalized on a lot of different situations. I thought our game plan defensively, except for stopping Cook, was brilliant. Doing a good job on Bird and putting Kamari on him so much. And for the most part, they haven't much in their passing game. Completed 14 out of 31, I think. But the thing that really bothers you, and you got to worry about something, but their ability to run the ball was pretty evident. We gave up a lot playing, and Schrader hurt us, but we're going to see a team probably a little bit better offensively, maybe not as good offensive line this week, but a quarterback is a lot more dangerous running the ball in Jackson Dart, and two really good backs and some good receivers. But bottom line, Georgia, when they play even their B game and don't turn the ball over and have penalties, hard to beat. So I like where we are. I think we got a really good shot of playing a night game here with all that here, and we got a chance to get Mims back and Powers at least run through the crowd there and everybody fired up in his uniform for senior day, which I'm sure he'll go through. Overall, just a good win.
I'm really impressed with Georgia's depth right now with some of the young talent that you're seeing get more playing time, emerge, be confident. And it's not just younger guys in the sense of like a Jalen Walker, who I think really is becoming a superstar for Georgia at the edge rusher, but then also inside linebacker is just so versatile of what he can do. But these younger guys, when you can bring in a Raylan Wilson at this point in the season, a Damon Wilson, like that's just things that other teams really can't do very much. Like you don't find yourself in November having this kind of talent on the roster that hasn't played much. That's what separates Georgia, and that's a bit of what Coach is talking about too, of Georgia being conditioned to play full games. Well, Georgia also has a roster where not all the guys have to play all the plays, and you're seeing some of that young talent emerge right now. That's what really helps make a championship contender at this point of the season.
Yeah, I think part of this is just what we talked about in earlier shows about developing depth when we didn't have a real good scout team and working against each other more. And then the other thing is the transfer portal. If you don't let these guys play at least a little bit, they're going to think, well, the same guy's coming back next year and I didn't get to play much. So even though that lingers a little bit, but I think it's out there just because these guys are good enough to get in there. And as good as Jalen Walker's playing, you watch the way the other guy rushes the passer, the Wilson kid on the other side. He'll make plays. And one of the biggest plays in the game from a true freshman that I thought that really set up the interception was the fact that C.J. Allen, number 3, Kumas Johnson, who had surgery, I think, in the last day or so and will be out, hopefully get back to the playoffs. But I think he had surgery. I mean, I've heard of it. I'm not sure if he did or not, but he's definitely out for a little bit. Point. He comes in there. He's been playing. He's been spotting in there, and it wasn't like he just had to get in there and start playing. I mean, he'd been practicing. He knew the calls. A lot on your plate as a linebacker for Georgia. You've got to understand what your role is. If you're playing a match coverage, you got to play that. If you're playing a read and react defense where you got to go, you got to do it. But if you've got the quarterback on a spy technique, you're supposed to play that guy, and that's what we started doing in the second half. And Allen had him, and he saw the opening, and it looked like the guy wasn't going to run, so he rushed the passer, which innately was a tremendous play, but chance of being a bad play if all of a sudden Cook broke out and made a big play out of it. But he was smart enough to do it, and made it ball to a receiver that really wasn't looking for the ball. And we got one of the worst calls in the history of football when they called Munden for blocking the illegal crackback when all he was doing was taking a tight end out when the guy was catching a pass. So that was a 65-yard penalty. But kudos to C.J. Allen. I'm talking a little bit too much here, for just being smart enough to see and recognize what Glenn Schumann had told him, be a football player, react in the moment. And that was as huge a play as the whole game. That turnover to Stackhouse just kind of gave the whole crowd a lot of juice. I mean, it's not every day you get to see a guy rumbling down the sideline like that. And it just turned the whole game around. And then at the end, Bull intercepted the other one. But I continue to marvel at our lack of penalties, at our lack of turnovers, and just the discipline we play with. Our kicking game is within a cat's ass of breaking a long one on the kick. We got some really big ones Saturday. And we punt the ball well, and we make field goals. So all those things are going to add up in these big games coming down the stretch.
I think you nailed it, Dane, talking about the depth and how that matters. I mean, this has been maybe the worst season I can ever remember. It's definitely the worst in Kirby Smart's tenure with injuries. So you go into that game, and at one point, Kamari Lassiter gets banged up. And you have, they run a new technique. I say new, but we saw 3 cornerbacks out there, and I want Coach to talk about that in a second. But the fact that Dumas Johnson, basically breaks his forearm, C.J. Allen comes in and spells him. You see Damon Wilson coming off the edge doing what he did. We were looking back at Missouri, and they've got 2 running backs. They've only used 2 running backs all year. Third guy doesn't have any snaps. The offensive line for them, same guys. The next person up may have 50 snaps over 7-8 games. The 6th offensive lineman. So if any of those guys go down, they're not going to bring in anybody experienced. Georgia's had tons of people go down. Sometimes people miss games. You went 4 games without Lad McConkey. You've missed Javon Bullard out there. You've missed Smile Monday. You missed, you name it. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, most of the season was out. But when you lose those guys, and I don't want to call it plug and play because that's just not fair, but you're being able to put in guys who are talented and who make plays, like Coach said. I think that's been the difference. And pretty much, I don't even say mistake-free, but very few mistakes, especially for the new guys. So that bodes well. Although, Coach, I can always be negative. I can always be a worry wart. I do worry about this upcoming game. That
you should worry about it. You should.
I'm petrified of this game. I'm worried about it.
These guys are good, but as good as C.J. Allen is, he's got a guy breathing down his neck in Raylan Wilson, who's probably as good and a little bit bigger. I guarantee you watch the way this guy play. He had a bad injury there in the middle of the early in the season with his leg. But if he starts coming on like I know he can, and you add Munden in there and Sorey, who had a bit of an issue, but coming back this week, I mean, our linebacker depth is going to be good enough to make up for what we might lose in Pop, but lose the leadership. But just watch. I'm going to tell you about 8:27 on Monday night, November 7th. You watch number 5. This guy is a player, and he's gonna make his on this season, and it'll start probably Saturday against Ole Miss.
Wow. Talk to me a little bit about them going with 3 cornerbacks out there. I mean, honestly, I didn't notice it for most of the game because I wasn't really watching that close. I'm over there drinking beer beside you on the couch, not paying attention like I should. But because every time I looked up, I saw Tyke Smith making a play. I mean, I think he might have led the team. He was had some of the most tackles of anybody on the field. So it's like, well, he didn't seem out because he's always making a play. But yeah, they kind of went 3 corners.
Yeah, he played about 20-some snaps, and he made that great sack. A well-timed call there by Glenn Schumann where, we forced the field goal. But I think the thinking process is, we talked about it last year with Bullard playing star. Bullard's not a great cut, a real good tackler. And, we had to work around him. The same thing's true with Tyke, even though he's had some interceptions on his own and all. He's not a guy that's going to guard Luther Burden in the slot. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that can do that. I mean, right. He's among the better players in the country. So whatever you might give up support or anything like that, we train people. And it's not just like you're going to play a lot of man covers. You just put him in there and say, hey, just play man on him. You've got to know how to play the different man techniques, if it's match, if it's inside out or outside in, but also what's behind you. Like come out in a stacked look, like one time they did, and we had Singletary on the guy with a stack, and Singletary broke on the inside route and knocked it down to keep him from a first down. Well, he's playing corner, but if you're the star or somebody playing that other guy, you got to know how to do it. But it was something that Kirby and Schumann and Muschamp and felt good about, and it felt like anything we might give up with the multiple defenses, we might be better off. And when you look at it, Luther Burden was snafu'd. I mean, he caught the one pass, which I thought he might have been in a situation where he pushed off on Everett, but and that was when Kamar on him. But overall, just a brilliant tactical move by us. And the guy only caught, I think, 3 passes on the day. And to his favor, he did hurt his ankle early. And right now I read where he might be out this week against Tennessee, but it might be just throwing a little bait out there. But the reality is, we're going to get good coaching. We're going to get adjustments. And we're going to, it's just hard to people make plays on you. We had a couple plays that didn't look good when they threw the ball in the hole on cover 2, where safety wasn't in job with the corner. But I just I like where our defense is. I think we're starting to come on. I like the fact that Mims is probably going to be able to play this week based on everything Kirby's talking about. And, maybe move Truss back, but also Truss can play either tackle. But overwhelming is the fact that both those guys at guard, both Fairchild and Morris, played extremely well. Fairchild's not even giving up any pressure on the year. And it's kind of a road grader. You look at some of the blocks when he gets in there. So our line all of a sudden has got some depth. We get Bowers back. We got McConkey healthy. I mean, down the stretch, we've got a chance to be Secretariat.
Coach, I wanted to mention one thing to you, just because I know this will be kind of close to your heart here. I was raving about Jalen Walker. Well, yesterday, my kindergartner comes home from school, and she says, Daddy, there's a Georgia football player, number 11, Jay Walker. And so, sure enough, Jalen Walker, one of 4 players that went and read some books at my kids' elementary school. So it was Jalen Walker, Jackson Muschamp, William Moat, and Drew Bobo went out there and read books to kids yesterday out here in Oconee County. So she was excited for it, and I know this is a big deal for those players too.
I think as much as the kids get out of the players, I mean, it's a chance for them to see the smiles on those kids' faces and things like that. And Roddy had an early look at Jalen Walker in high school when he was up there talking to him, but he's one of them, not just because he's from North Carolina, but he comes from a educational family. His dad's a coach. I think his mom's a teacher. He's just a quality guy, and he really is just a phenomenal athlete. Could play tight end. He did play great basketball player in high school, and you're getting to see some of his athleticism as he comes off the edge. But he can play linebacker too. But of course, Jackson Muschamp has been a great team guy. Got a chance to graduate here this summer. This spring has been on the scout team, just wanted to come to Georgia. And we know William Moat's a good snapper. And then Drew Bobo really having a good year on the scout. He's getting some valuable time as a center, got good feet. And glad to see those guys out there.
Do you know if Jackson has any interest in coaching like his dad?
I haven't heard that. I do know that he would probably entertain a chance to maybe go to a non-Power 5 or 1AA school and maybe play for a couple of years because he'd like to play, but he wants that degree from Georgia. And let me tell you something, degree from Georgia means a whole lot to these guys. I mean, both you guys have got degrees here. But
I'm about to have 2.
I saw a guy today that came up to me and I had a UGA, and he said, "You remember me?" And I said, "No. But I probably should have recruited you." He said, "Hey, you did recruit me, but I went to the Naval Academy and I just finished up my 20-year stint, and I'm coming back to Georgia to get me a master's degree." And I said, "Well, that's awesome." He said, "Coach, I just want to tell you," he said, "it was hard for me to tell you no, but I love Georgia, and it always makes you feel good to and I can't even remember the guy's name right now, but I know he's a big guy, and he again, just wanted to come back to Georgia where his roots are after being for 20 years. And that's always good to see guys doing things like that.
That's great.
Yeah, Coach, you kind of mentioned in passing some of the guys that Georgia could get back this week. And we asked Kirby Smart about this. This 8:35, I guess, a couple hours ago after practice. They asked him about Brock Bowers. He says he's doing dry land running, and he's working to get back. And he's kind of keeping it very vague. But our folks are telling us that he actually dressed out. He put on a black jersey. So he actually put on shoulder pads on Tuesday. So he's not going to be hit. But just the fact he put on shoulder pads, I think is a big deal. And we've seen this where, like, Amarius Mims has dressed out the last 2 weeks. He hasn't played, but he, when Kirby says, well, he could have if we needed him. Lots of times right after an injury, we have a kind of a joke about Kirby saying that about anybody that gets hurt, that he could have gone back in there. But we saw this with Lawson Lucky too. He made that trip to Auburn. He dressed out and then he made the trip, and then he played a little special teams. Then he came back kind of full time, if you will. It seems like we're 1 week much closer to Brock Bowers coming back. What would it mean if he could come out and just take a couple snaps?
Who knows what the future holds? I know they're going to be overprotective, not only for our team, but this kid's career too, because what he has available. But as far as dressing out, Brock Bowers probably wore his shoulder pads into surgery. I mean, he's ready to go out. I mean, he doesn't mind out there and doing whatever he needs to do, and he's going to play through pain. But I just know it give the whole stadium a little juice there if he could, just go through the line there, and which I'm sure he will. But if he goes through in a red jersey and all, and it's just like if he would go out there, even if it's a decoy, it would cause a little consternation on Pete Golding, the defensive coordinators. And I'm sure Kirby's probably throwing that out to make him work on him a little bit. But can't say about the way Delp's playing, though. Every chance he's had so far to supplement our team, he's made every play. He had that fumble against Auburn, but I mean, when he's got a chance to do things for Georgia like he needs to do since Bowers has been out, and his blocking's been good too. So I'm just happy that we withstood where we didn't fire our best shot. It didn't take an L for us to.
No, that's a good point. There, you had the situation where you didn't play your A game, but I'm wondering, can Georgia dial up that A game this week? Because I think this will be their toughest challenge until SEC championship game, playoffs, something like that. Because that was it wasn't your best effort. And I actually asked Kirby Smart about the offensive line. I'm like, how did they grade out? I just, he always says when we ask him after the game, he's like, I need to watch the tape. So Monday, we know he'd watch the tape, and he's like, what is the grade? I'm happy with the results of how they played. Sometimes we got our butt whooped. Sometimes we didn't. We won some, we lost some. And then he started getting on the whole expectations. And I'm like, I'm not asking about the expectations. I just want to know if you were happy with how the O-line did, because, it's you've got a lot of moving parts there. And now you could get Amarius Mims back. In other words, I think you need every weapon and need to probably score a lot of points in this upcoming game against Ole Miss. I mean, am I wrong to think that? I feel like.
Yeah, you got to think you're going to need – you're going to need some points again. But this team is not very good on the road offensively compared to at home when you compare their stats. They haven't had near the stats on the road. But they do have a very capable quarterback, and they got several receivers and unbelievable backs. And the thing about their backs is tackle after contact. They make a lot of yards, so you got to wrap them up. I know our Georgia was hard on that all week, and you got to think deep. Kirby going against Lane, it's got to be something that he remembers from back. I know when we used to have scrimmages when I was at OU going against Gary Gibbs, his personal, same thing as in Missouri against Carl Brees. I mean, you want to beat up on those guys, but it's not going to get anything more than Kirby would do for any. I just think our team is starting to understand what their capabilities are. It's got its own identity. The back-to-backs in the past, they've established the fact that their own team, they've won 9 games, and they've been pretty dominant doing it, and they're getting their own identity, and they see, hey, we brought in a couple good transfers. They're helping us. We got some good freshmen. Everybody's got a role, and I just feel like sense of relief that game's behind us and that we got some really good potential coming forward here.
I'm going to ask you more about the Ole Miss game and get you to break it down a little bit for us and some of the other, and we'll get to the questions from the dog vent. But first, I want to mention our friends at Academia Brewing Company. If you're coming in this weekend and want to watch the game, and let's say you can't get in the stadium, tickets right now are through the roof. Hell, I'm even looking for 4 tickets. It's just nuts. Trying to find them, it's crazy. So let's say you come to town and you want to be part of the tailgate, you want to see, be part of the pomp and circumstance, a night game in Athens, a top 10 matchup, but you still need a place to watch it. Well, go by Academia Brewing Company, check them out, get some fantastic beers. Heck, apply for a job. They need kitchen staff and hosts right now. But if you want to try their Death Ripper IPA, their Hell's German Bock, they have tons of the Noctua, their Hopperdisiac, all their great beers are out there. And of course, they're always having something like a car show or bike night or trivia night. There's never a dull moment out at Academia Brewing Company, one of the top breweries in Athens. And that's as anybody who is familiar with the beer scene in Athens say that is high praise indeed, because there's some fantastic competition in town, and Academia celebrating their 6th year. So they're doing a great job. Check them out when you get a chance. Also, if you're on that side of town, swing by our friends at Athens Ford. You see now they're up to 700 vehicles. Remember, back during COVID, we're talking about how they had 230. Now they're up to 700. So, and they can do more than that. So when you get a chance and you're looking for a new vehicle or a pre-owned vehicle, check out Athens Ford. They have a ton of them on the lot. They can order you in stuff. And if you buy one and, when you drive off the lot, if it's a new one, it's going to have a lifetime powertrain warranty, or if it's pre-owned up to like 80,000 miles, it too will have a lifetime powertrain warranty. You do not get that at other Ford dealers. You don't get that at other dealerships. It's only at Athens Ford. So be sure to hit them up and don't just assume that any Ford dealership you go to, you're going to get that. That is a nice perk from our friends at Athens Ford. Check them out.
Could I play a bit of trivia with y'all before? I mean, this is Ole Miss related, but this is a comment that Lane Kiffin made in his news conference yesterday about Georgia. And Lane Kiffin likes to be a little cheeky and throw his offhand comments. I think it's fun. Some people don't. That's cool. But he was saying that it's really hard to go into Athens and beat Georgia in Sanford Stadium. And he said, I can't call the last person that did it because they're working there right now, meaning Will Muschamp of South Carolina. Other than Will Muschamp, can you name the 3 other head coaches that have come into Sanford Stadium and beat a Kirby Smart-led team? And they all happened in the first season.
I can name them. The guy at Tennessee, the guy at Vanderbilt, right?
Yep. So Derek Mason at Vanderbilt. It was Butch Jones at Tennessee.
See, I missed
that. Yeah, and
wow.
And Paul Johnson.
And Paul Johnson. So now I wondered if Lane Kiffin will be calling Paul Johnson saying, how did you do it 8 years ago?
Yeah,
he can put in an option.
Paul and get him line up in the wishbone. That'd be great. I'd love to see that. Hey,
here comes the beer. Wing T.
Paul, he got in the Hall of Fame this year. He had a tremendous career at Navy and Georgia Southern, and really cadence he left. But he had a good system, that's for sure.
I like Paul Johnson. Paul Johnson was just a fun, curmudgeon-y. He had good lines and very well respected. And that guy's a legend in Statesboro to this day.
Well, they won a lot of games down there, that's for sure.
All right, Coach, looking ahead to this Ole Miss game, I did a radio spot with our Ole Miss publisher, Neil McCready. He's a fantastic guy, number one source of news in the Ole Miss market. And he's like, well, I expect Georgia to win. And he's kind of a curmudgeon-y guy too. He's a little bit pessimistic like me, but he knows that they can win. He knows that Ole Miss plays their game right. That they have that possibility. He and I both kind of agreed that it would come down to turnovers, but he's asked. We were talking back and forth, and every time he would mention Georgia, I would mention something about Ole Miss, and he said, "Well, what do you think Ole Miss does well?" I'd like to get an outsider's opinion. I'm like, you've got a quarterback who's dangerous. You've got one of the top running backs in the SEC, and you got one of the top wide receivers in the SEC. And it seems to me if Georgia's trying to bracket Trey Harris, then here comes Judkins around the edge. And then if you're bracketing him, Jackson Dart takes it. How do you stop Ole Miss?
Well, you got to win first and second down, so get them in the long yardage and where you can really pin your ears back on Dart. when they got the threat of the RPO or the run, quarterback run, they run some actual quarterback runs where they run the counter, the sweep, and things like that. You got that threat plus the play action pass, and they take an inordinate amount of deep shots down the back. They're really good at throwing the ball down the boundary. So you just got to pick and choose your pressures, and you got to get some penetration. We saw some good stops by Alabama against them, and Auburn did a good job on them. I mean, they didn't score once on Auburn, but that was on the road too. So, but the biggest thing for us is this: they're going to have a hard time stopping us if we don't stop. I just feel like Beck really is control. We got Milton rolling now along with Edwards. Just a lot of different receivers. I'm sure that Ole Miss presents a challenge to us, but this definitely is not mission impossible here. I mean, this is I expect us to win.
Coach, when I've seen Lane Kiffin in these games, I've seen a few of the gadgets and trick plays and just kind of emptying up the playbook there. They didn't do it as much against Alabama. It was a very uninspired second half offensively. Do you ever, as a coach, expect those things to happen in a game like this?
Oh, sure. You got to look at all his history. I mean, like Saturday, he ran a hidden man play. I mean,
I was about to bring that up. I'm like,
they had a guy run over to the sideline like he's going out of bounds, but he didn't. He didn't go out of bounds, and Texas A&M didn't recognize it, and Dart just stood up and threw it to him for a touchdown. But the overriding thing with Lane, as good a job as he's done, and he's been in some prominent programs, head coach of USC, head coach of Tennessee, head coach of the Oakland Raiders, Florida Atlantic, 1-19 against top 10 teams. He's never beaten.
You're breaking up, Coach.
He's 1-19.
Wow.
He's only had one win against a top 20 team or top 10 team. That's what I read. So as good a coach as he is, I mean, he had a hard time in the big game. So this is a big game.
Oh. And Kirby's actually did the thing where he says, look, fans, we need you to show up. We need you to show up, show out, be loud. And you, as you pointed out, it's a lot harder to win on the road. I think they had the number 21st ranked offense in the nation, when overall, but then when they go on the road, their offense drops to about 69th or so, or 67th. So
right.
Not the best. And again, it's every team's going to have that. Playing at home, you're a lot more comfortable. So I think that's huge that Georgia has this.
The thing about it, they run that fast-paced offense. And, the other day, we didn't get them to really jump off sides or anything much, but we did get the center to balls early, and the guy wasn't looking. Yeah. He made a miraculous catch on both of them and still got the ball off. But the other thing that just sticks out in my mind, 2009 is the last time we lost a night home game. I mean, Dayne wasn't even there. Were you in college 14 years ago, Dayne?
I was, yeah. That's actually when I transferred to UGA was 2009, so I just got into Athens.
So it was your fault.
You were giving them signals to the other team then, or what were you doing?
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing.
That's amazing.
Fans should not need much motivation for this. One, it's just a top 10 matchup, but this is the last home game that you get until September 7th. I mean, it's almost a year away.
The other thing which we bragged about all year is this is something that 20, 30 years ago, you say, hey, I was there for the Georgia when they were on that run. I experienced stadium. There's nothing, can't ever take anything for granted like that. And,
I remember
last weekend, my grandson, who grew up a little bit around here to Oklahoma, but he came to the game. He just couldn't believe it. He said it's hard to believe that experience going over there, but it's just we maybe take it for granted a little bit, but the thing that just chaps me is the negativity that goes around here about all the things we don't do right. But, we sure do a lot of good.
Yeah, I think most people are thrilled to death because you're winning these games. You're 9-0 and you've won 2 titles. It's people are hoping for another one. I think it's just that fear. there's that fear of when the other shoe is going to drop. I get it. I think a lot of other people do, and it's I don't know. There's negativity. It's just worry. It's like you're looking for the weak link. The way in for somebody. And again, when I look at Ole Miss, I'm like, this is going to be a good team. And then the fact that I guess that Missouri had won before they played Georgia. Now Ole Miss wins one. Tennessee's winning. Of course, they only played Connecticut. It's just it seems like the schedule got a lot harder.
I think if you look at it that way, though, that's just discounting how much this Georgia team this season has improved. Because if you go back and look at some of the tape from early in this season, this team wasn't what it has become now. And it could have lost a game or two along the way. It had some close calls. To get where it's gotten, to have the confidence it does, they've really come together in a way that I think is pretty special. I mean, this has the makings of like I just that win against Missouri is a very quality win. I think Missouri could potentially end up being a top 10 team by the end of this.
Well, the schedule's certainly in their favor. They got this at home, and they got Florida at home, and then they got to play Arkansas. But who was it? Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, "The fear of the unknown is worse than the fear itself." I mean, the unknown is not there, man. So, hey, we'll just have to see how it rolls out. But deep down, the thing as an old coach, it just gives me a satisfaction is our kicking game, because we're going to really make the force here down the stretch. We got a lot of potential on returns. We got a great kicker, great punter. Guys are just busting their butt to be on the special teams. I wouldn't be surprised if Bowers play on his Saturday. I mean, it's just amazing.
He might want to learn to kick, because if the Texans draft him, they may need a kicker one day.
Yeah. I was reading the transcript from Kirby Smart earlier today. You can watch the whole video on this channel. We always put up his press conference videos. And someone asked him about Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint. He went off about what a great leader he was. He said the same thing about a couple other guys, but he was raving about Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint. And he says he begs to be on special teams. And I mean, and I'm sure, Coach, you know this far better than I do, but there was a time where, not in the Kirby Smart era, but in or just around the league, the star players playing on special teams was almost like a demotion to them. They're like, you're a star player. I don't play special teams. That's for somebody else. And when you've got a starter, and Kirby's had this, going all the way back to Sony Michel, his first major play was a tackle on special teams. When you got guys that want to do that, and, of your top 44, as you always talk about, the top 44 guys on your roster, when so many of them populate your special teams things, that's a third of the game that your best players are out there making it. So I agree with you. And shout out to Peyton Woodring. We got to give him credit for winning yet another SEC Freshman of the Year award. Freshman of the Week award. I think he's won this 3 or 4 times.
He's going to have to get a bigger apartment for all the trophies.
Yeah. All right, Dayne, let's hit up a couple of our sponsors real quick. I want to mention Dead Soxy, because they have a promotion that's going on. If you go to deadsoxy.com right now, they have a sale going on where if you buy up to $100, you get 20% off. You buy $200, 30% off. $250, it's like 40% off. We cut out all that crap. They sent us a deal for the members at UGASports.com. And this is the same deal when they did the Name the Score thing, where you get a straight 40% off of whatever you buy. Now, not everybody else gets to do that. So if you're an Ole Miss fan and you're buying socks for them and you want 40% off, you got to spend, $200 or $160, I think. Not UGA Sports. If you use that promo code UGA Sports, you get 40% off. So one pair, 2 pair, 10 pair, whatever. Use promo code UGA Sports and get a great deal. It's the best deal they're going to have. We're in November now. It's November 7th. You got Thanksgiving coming up. You got Christmas after that. You got to have new socks for the playoffs, for the championship game, whatever Georgia's got coming up. If you want the red and black ones, you got to get those now. Remember, go to Dead Soxy, use promo code UGA Sports, get 40% off. Do it now. Don't wait. Also, our friends at Your Pie, okay? They've got a new bacon and cheddar pizza. I've not seen this. I'm gonna have to.
We may have to hit this up for the watch along show and get some Your Pie.
Yeah. So hey, folks. Speaking of, don't forget to tune into the watch along show this coming Saturday with Coach Donnan. You don't want to miss that. But yeah, they've always got new stuff coming on out there. They had the Philly cheesesteak pizza. They've had their peaches and prosciutto. They've had all sorts of, I don't want to call them novelty, but specialty pizzas, where the stuff that they create that's really good. Now they got this bacon and cheddar, and that looks really good. So check out our friends at Your Pie. You can order now. It's still Tuesday. I know it's late. You're not going to order a pizza almost 9 o'clock, but you can order tomorrow's pizza. You can order Thursdays. You can order Fridays or Saturdays. And if you order it today, you get the double points. And the points build up very quickly on the Your Pie app, and you get free pizzas, free salads, free gelatos, free breadsticks, all sorts of free stuff by using the app. So check them out when you get a chance.
Get the questions from UGASports.com. Bulldog Ben did ask immediately if there was an update on Brock Bowers and his chances to play. We've talked a lot about that, and we'll see what comes of Saturday. We do think he'll dress out, though. He also asked, Coach, who do you think's better, Missouri or Ole Miss?
I've seen they're both good football teams, well coached, got different persona a little bit. I think Missouri's a little bit more entrenched in their defensive system. Their coach has been there. Ole Miss is starting to learn a lot more about what they can do. Golding, who came from Alabama, I would say it's pretty much either one of them could beat the other, but Missouri probably a little bit better on defense, and Ole Miss better on offense.
Big Fatty 94 says, if Lane Kiffin has issues with the Nick Saban coach team, I don't think that he'll find fixes against a Kirby Smart coach team. What do you think will be Georgia's defensive keys to this game? Because I'm not worried about offense. I think Georgia will hang 50+ this weekend.
Well, we can certainly score on them, but we got to take care of business and execute. Stop yourself too. But I think as far as our plan, we've got to gang tackle. We got to try to get some lost yardage plays, and we got to play the ball in the air. We're going to get a lot of deep shots on us, and hopefully avoid the interference penalty. They gang tackle, create havoc on dart and ball.
I'm going to give Gibbs Dog 15 the question of the day here, because Radi, sometimes they ask good enough questions. They should probably have my or your job. And this is one that probably should be asked of Coach Donnan. It says, Coach, what are your thoughts on all of the coaches going for it on fourth downs in college and pro? Lane Kiffin does more than most any college coach. Would you be that aggressive, or would you be more conservative?
I think you got to go with the flow here. You don't have as many possessions now. You got to really look at going more than you used to, just because of the clock and everybody around that. You saw us the other day go for it when we called a play and got them offside through it. But based on me, I used to go for it a lot when they did the clock, and I guess I'd be leading the nation on going for it now.
Yeah, because I think back to the Oregon-Washington game, and Dan Lanning was hyper aggressive, and based on the analytics, he was doing what he should be doing, and I think he trusted his offense as well. But there were probably a couple possessions in that game that ended up costing them. And I know you can look back and wish you did something different, but still, it's just fascinating to me how the sport has changed and what's more acceptable and not in going for it.
Yeah, I mean, you go to that pregame meal and you talk about there's going to be 2 or 3 plays that change the game or make a difference. And if you could say to yourself, hey, if we got one play to win the game and we make 2 yards or 3 yards, take it. So you practice all that, but make sure you use a good play. I mean, some guys roll a guy out to the left and let somebody else ball instead of your quarterback, or you run a play like Billy Napier ran against us, which was
I was about to mention that one.
Billy Napier and the Florida Gators are going south, man. They're in Cancun now. They're going on down to in Mexico as you can go.
I know you got another question, Dane, but because Florida came up, I have to ask Coach, do they win any of their last 3 games?
Ooh,
no.
That's rough.
Who they going to beat?
No bowl game.
I don't think they beat anybody. I'm thinking they're not going
to beat LSU
now, so they're 5-2.
They're not going to beat Florida State. Their defense is Jed Clampett, man. I mean, it's like when he went behind the cement pond and saw Camel, thought it was a horse. Pitiful looking horse.
if that comes to pass, that's Florida and South Carolina not going to a bowl game unless you get one of those 5-win teams that gets a courtesy invite.
You got Mississippi State and Vanderbilt too. I mean, you got teams in our league not in the bowl.
Can you imagine? Have you seen
Arkansas,
Florida's schedule for
Arkansas, right? I
I
mean,
was about to say Arkansas.
gotta win out.
Do you see Florida's schedule for next year?
They open them up with Miami in the pillow fight of the year, but who else?
It's brutal.
I'll pull it up for you.
Pull it up. This is where the folks, I know we're talking Georgia stuff and Georgia Ole Miss, and we're answering questions, but I'm just saying that one of their big insiders on their Florida board is like, I'm done with Billy Napier. And
All right, here we go. We've got Miami, Samford, UCF, Georgia, Florida State. Those are the ones that have dates. The ones that don't have dates: Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, at Mississippi State, at Tennessee, at Texas.
Tough. Not as tough as us, though. We got to play at Texas, at Alabama, and Clemson.
Well, but Georgia's in a much better place to take those games on than
Florida.
That's my point. Is in other words, it's not like, oh, this will be a bad year. We can just get to next year and it'll all get better. No. It's got to go.
I would say you're going to see some major changes in that program as far as staff. He's going to have the same situation as Drinkowitz, maybe bring in an offensive coordinator. I don't change any of it, but I mean, I'd still do. But, Florida having the losing record that they have right now in the last is just unacceptable.
Do you think they need to hire a new game-changing coordinator?
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Is that the problem? They do need their game changed.
I know they had a hard time figuring out how to stop the clock to kick a field goal the other day, but they figured it out and then they missed it.
You're right.
This question from Big Old Dog, and it may be Roddy's burner account, the way this reads. He says, just give me a few reasons to feel good about this game. My inner Munson is in full-blown panic mode, especially after Lane Kiffin's Monday presser, where he said how great Georgia is and that they're playing with house money over there at Ole Miss.
He's right. They are playing with house money. That's I said the same thing about Missouri. I said there's no pressure on them. They come in here, they're expected to lose. They were 15.5 point dogs in that game.
And I never understood that spread, but
I didn't either. Hey, for the one who got it right, saying Georgia would not cover, that pessimism paid off at least once this year. And it's not pessimism, it's just knowing that they were a good team and thinking that Vegas was off. Now the spread on this one was like 3. So that's
Georgia, Missouri, or Georgia, Ole Miss.
Yeah, what is it?
It's like 9 or 10.
9. That's
it. All right, hold on. You don't trust
me?
No,
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that it seems a bit
too high.
Yeah, too high because it's a good team. Anyway, my point is, if they win that one, they're going to wind up 11-1 because they're going to beat ULM. They're going to beat Mississippi State. They're not going to have to play in the SEC championship game because Alabama is probably going to win out, and then Alabama will face Georgia in the SEC title game more than likely.
I'm saying it 10.5.
10.5. Okay. Well, the first one I saw was probably somebody on Twitter saying it. So anyway, so he's supposed to lose by double digits. And he's like, look, we can go in there, play free and loose. We don't have to worry about it. So again, he wants it. That's big. And I was speaking to Neil. Neil said this would be the biggest win of the modern Ole Miss era. They've had a couple wins against Alabama.
Going back to the Hugh Freeze wins against, that's nothing since then, really. Other than, Egg Bowls are fine, but they're not this. You knock off the 2-time defending champion in their own house. So, of course, he is playing with house money. No, they don't. They know they can win, and they might be and a lot of people might say a lot. Some people might pick them to be an upset, but they know there's no pressure on them. So, well, and Ole Miss is the only SEC team that Kirby Smart hasn't beaten, right?
Yeah.
Now they only played him once, and it was that first year.
Yeah, his first year on the road, and that was
That game was over before it started. It felt like
31 nothing at the half.
Ooh.
I mean, it was so. Yeah, Kirby would like to get that one back, but it's not a situation where they're not going to come in all clinched up and worried. They're going to come in and play free. So, in other words, give them some positive things. Okay, well, Georgia's a 10-point favorite. That's good. Vegas expects it, but your offense is going to score on them, and they've had a hard time with the better teams on their schedule. They're not the same offensive team on the road as they are at home. So I think that if Georgia plays normally and doesn't turn the ball over, Georgia plays its game, they win the ball game. I guess my worry is that Ole Miss is so good at getting turnovers. They're really good at it. And if you give Jackson Dart and give Lane Kiffin a couple more drives than what you have, now it's going to be tough. But you should score on them and maybe if you get a takeaway or two, it'll be just like the Missouri game. Beat them in the turnover margin, you win the game.
North Buckhead.
About our team this year, I mean, we've only turned the ball over like 8 or 9 times total, but we haven't got many turnovers either. But what was the guy's name? He asked the question about give me some reasons to.
That was Big Old Dog.
So I'm going to give him to you, Big Old Dog. Amarius Mims is coming back, okay? I would think he would be able to play and give us a real spark there at right tackle. 84 in your program, number 1 in your heart, is playing a lot of extended play. He's played over 40 last week. Our entire secondary is really developed. They got a lot of depth now. We played another guy in the secondary in Humphrey. They gave us some more help too. Our defensive line pressure is starting to really accelerate. Our depth at linebacker has gotten better. Our running game, even though it didn't focus in the first half, second half looked good. Delp continues to play good. Beck didn't have his best game, but he's got his best game ahead of us. I would say I could just keep on and on about why I feel like plus we're playing at night, we're playing at home. It would be a real surprise to me if we don't go out and play really well.
Yeah, you can play with house money, but house always gets its money back. So
North Buckhead Dog wants to know how these stretch of 3 games relate to each other coaching-wise. Says, how does defending Missouri last week help with Ole Miss this week, if any? Same question for Tennessee. Does playing Ole Miss this week help prepare for the Vols next week? And how helpful is it to play these 3 teams and their styles of offense back to back to back in terms of preparation?
Well, each individual group has different styles. I mean, Tennessee now is more of a running spread offense. You saw Ole Miss was kind of really balanced, and last week we saw Missouri's the same thing. So, but I think the big key is the defenses of these 3 teams. We're going to see a downward trend here. Missouri was the best defense. Ole Miss probably 1A and 1B between Tennessee because Tennessee is not very good against the pass. I mean, in fact, they're terrible. Don't have the corners that Ole Miss, Missouri had. But, it's the thing it's going to do is help you confidence-wise because you've been able to work it out. But none of them are as good as who we play against all week in practice. They're not.
Very fair.
Let's take a break and mention our friends at My Perfect Franchise real fast.
Yeah, real quick, the folks at My Perfect Franchise, what they do is they help you get into franchise. They don't push one on you. They figure out what your goal is. What do you want to do? What amount of time do you have? Of course, what resources do you have? Because that factors into it as well. And what do you want to get out of it? So they ask you a lot of questions, and then they can say, okay, out of our over 3,000 different franchises, here's what would work for your goals, your plans, your resources, your time availability, where you want to be. And so a lot of people think, well, I have to learn an entire new industry. No, you don't. It's that's the whole point of a franchise being a franchisee is that somebody's already come up with a great plan, a great concept, and they just show you how to implement it. So reach out to My Perfect Franchise. It is free to do so. It doesn't cost you anything. You can call them, you can text them, you can email them, you can send them a fax, whatever, and they will take great care of you and say, look, here's what we can do for you. It doesn't cost you anything. So hit up My Perfect Franchise when you get a chance.
I've been good. Wants to know, Coach, who would you like to see as the guest picker on College Game Day? I said Claude Felton.
Yeah, Claude would be good. He wouldn't pick anybody though. He'd play the middle road there. He's always, I think maybe Harmon would be great if they could get him on there. Just one to open British.
I think Brad Harmon would be a great pick.
They picked anybody yet?
Not that I've seen.
I think they have, but they haven't told anybody.
Who is it?
Oh, I don't know. I was just going by. I think it was Pat McAfee was talking about. He's excited about who the guest picker is. They didn't reveal it. I'd love to see Kevin Kisner out there. I mean, that man is funny.
Yeah.
He's a right. So if you want somebody who just can crack wise with those guys to have jokes,
Pat McAfee's happy. Must be Charo or something.
They had Luke Bryan last year. We've seen Jeff Foxworthy recently. Jeezy did it within the last couple of years. Quavo.
Hey, put David Pollock back out there. A reunion.
That can't happen. He's coaching, man. North Oconee playing at 1:30. He's got a job to do.
There's no way they're going to do that with David.
No, I just thought it'd be great. It's like, hey, welcome back.
That's a question from Billy Zane. As an offensive coach and offensive coordinator, how do you navigate between tendency breakers and playing to your strengths?
Real fine line, Billy. If you don't have tendencies, you're not very good. You got to have some other, and you got to have things you can call on when everybody else knows. But you need to maybe put some window dressing on it and use some different formations and all. But self-scouting is very prominent. We've got an inordinate amount of people that help us say, look, every time we're in this formation, we're a heavy tendency to pass. Or every time we're into the boundary with this look, we never go to the field. There might be, but pretty much as a play caller, because you know what you're looking for and everything. But you need to keep them off balance. And one of the things I always try to do is maybe not so much formationally, but down in distance. Like the other day when we against Kentucky, we threw that 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2 pass to Bowers. Start out the game. So do some things that change your tendency down in distance. Also, field zone wise, you got the backed up, you got the middle of the field, you got the low red area, the high red area. If you have a tendency to do something, then maybe break it there. But overall, you can outcoach yourself too, because you think the other team's ready for it. But you got a horse, you got to ride it, and then they got to stop it.
This question from Michael Lowry on YouTube. Do you think Tyke Smith's in the same position that he played against Missouri?
Probably not. I think he probably played more their run threat, and they don't have near the threat in the slot. Even though they got good slot receivers and everything, but he's such a good run stopper. I think we'll probably we got that package available, that's for sure. But I would think we've got the ability to go dime 6 defensive back, which you use that against long yardage passes. So I could see him playing more like he did earlier in the year.
Another from YouTube, Dan Dickerson. Hey, Coach, we lost our commander on defense. Who was the most impactful defensive leader that you remember, the guy who really played the defense like a quarterback?
Ryan Bosworth. I mean, guy phenomenal. I mean, just put the whole team on his back. He got a lot of publicity and everything, but he was good. And of course, we had great linebackers here too. I mean, Tony Gilbert, Kendrell Bell, Will Witherspoon, Boss Bailey. I mean, all those guys just thumpers, man. They just thump.
Ron, Mexico, if there's some wet weather on Saturday, does that benefit either side?
I like to play in wet weather just because the defense has a hard time rushing a passer, and you know where you're going, and the other guy doesn't, and you get a lot of easier. Shotgun is really implemented to get the snap as compared to taking the ball off the center's wet butt. So it's a lot easier to run in offense in the rain than it is defense.
This question for Roddy: does Dayne get a pay raise with the second degree?
No, because then UGA can pay him more. He's not getting a second degree from UGASports. Screw that.
When is that? When are you graduating?
That'll be next month.
Really good. I need.
You know,
are you going to put on a cap and gown or anything?
I still have mine from undergrad. I might could go fish that out, but probably not. I usually work the graduation, so I'll probably continue.
Pretty impressive though. A guy with 2 kids and all the stuff you're doing, graduate degree, and work like you have. I'm gonna give you a little love on that. That's impressive.
I'll take all the love I can get. Let me see if I can find a question here and actually do my job and not talk about myself even more. I will say Georgia is 2-time national champs while I've been in grad school, so maybe I need to keep in grad school for our audience.
Yeah,
go for that doctorate now.
That may be all the questions that we have for the night as I'm scrolling and reading. We did have Hines Ward as guest picker was tossed into here. Someone would like to see Hines come back.
He'd be good when I know he loves Georgia.
We'll finish with this one from Michael. This just came in. If Carson Beck keeps playing the way he has, do you think he truly has a chance to be a finalist in New York for the Heisman?
You know, you got to look at the best players on the best team. He's right up there. I don't know that he has the stats of maybe Michael Penix or Bo Nix or some of those other guys. But, you know, there's always, if he gets on a roll here, there's always that chance. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I think he did have a good game last week, not a great game. I just think, you know, he had a little first time he's really pressured and didn't handle the pressure quite as much on some of his dropbacks. But that's hard for anybody. I mean, you know, you got these big guys coming at you, but I think he'll suffer from that. And I think his ankles bother him a little bit. But he definitely he's had a major year. I mean, it's just incredible the kind of success rate he's had, and give him a lot of credit. I mean, there was a lot of doubt, including me, because you had to see him do it. But he's a big part of our success.
I'm looking at Heisman odds right now. Michael Penix is in the lead there. Bo Nix, second best odds. The Jordan Travis, J.J. McCarthy. Carson Beck, 5th right now. I think the Jaden Daniels and LSU performance, and Jaden was great, but just LSU not being a contender late in the year, usually that hurts your chances.
Yeah, I mean, the way he played the first half quarters, I mean, well, you talk about an El Foldo. They're up 28-21, and they went out for some gumbo, man. I mean, they were history. I mean, Alabama. Somebody sent a memo to Tommy Rees to let Milroe run some quarterback runs, which has been scaring me all year. If they ever started that, he got over 150 yards rushing and 250 yards passing. I mean, this guy's a weapon now. I mean, all of a sudden, Alabama is really out there. And, you know, when you look at this college football playoff thing, I think look at these one-loss teams and see what they've done. Texas and Alabama have done a lot more than Oregon. Oregon, biggest win, Colorado and Utah. I mean, and I love Dan Lanning, but, you know, they got they're getting a lot of love for that close loss to Washington probably, but they could still have a lot to say what happens. And I don't know who's going to beat Washington now. Maybe Washington State, who knows? But it looks like Washington's going to be in the final game for the Pac-12 and probably play Oregon.
Yeah, it's going to be it's wild. And I'm with you. I know a lot of people were, angry about the playoffs being expanded, but I'm like, if you're Alabama and you're playing your best football and everyone keeps saying, well, you lost to Texas. You're like, what, is my season over for good? But with the expanded playoffs, so like, yeah, well, we're in. We just went out and we're in. So I'd like that.
As much as I don't like Oklahoma State, I don't like Texas probably close But you talk about 9 lives cat now. The other day, when K-State's kicking the extra point, you know how the extra point guy looks back at the guy to see if he's ready? Well, the center snapped the ball and hits the guy in the hands when he doesn't even have his head. He's not even looking for the ball. So they don't get that extra point, which is huge. Then they go down at the end of the game to kick a field goal. And before they did that, the guy catches a flat pass, is running into the end zone to win the game, and the guy trips him up at the 9, and they say he didn't make a first down, and they go for it on third, lose 2 yards. The guy's got a chip shot field out of the game, misses it. Then Texas can't do anything, and then Texas comes down and punts, and K-State comes back and kicks a field goal in the last second, go to overtime. Texas got the ball first, kicked the field goal, and K-State, instead of kicking a field goal, went for it on 4th down on the 7-yard line and didn't win. But Texas lucky. I mean, they were lucky there.
I think some funky stuff could be happening here in the final month of the season. Like I'm looking at Louisville right now. 1 loss. If they beat Virginia this week, they clinch a spot in the ACC championship game. Scheduled down the stretch, Virginia, at Miami, Kentucky. All of those are winnable. And if they win those, they get Florida State for the ACC championship. Winner gets in the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like Florida State's going to run the table. Whether they can beat Louisville will be interesting to see. But this Florida State team has had some injuries and some tough – I mean, barely beat Boston College. They don't have a lot of signature wins. The LSU win looks good, but now LSU's got 3 losses. So
maybe Duke, but even then, Duke just lost to Louisville too.
True. But Duke's quarterback's been out, but – hey,
Clemson's back. That's a win.
There's a lot of – hey, Dabo got good win. How about Kirby last week on his call-in show? Hope he didn't get a call from
Tyler
in
Spartanburg.
Good job by Kirby. Hey, I just also want to give a shout-out to our soccer team.
Oh,
Tremendous job by them. I watched that game Sunday, and this really gutty performance beating Arkansas, and really fired up about the fact that second year back
year
already won the championship. So Josh Brooks continues to do a great job bringing in quality coaches, and feel like our men's and women's basketball team are going to be improved. Just have to see. Man, South Carolina women the other day, I watched them against Notre Dame, and that freshman from Cologne, I don't know what they had to give her, but whatever they give her is good. And here's the final one. LSU women's basketball team has been patted on the back so much they've had to get MRIs, and they got beat so bad by Colorado in the opening game. It was ugly. And so this never goes – it goes to show you anybody can get beat. I mean, It just happens.
That's crazy. Yeah. Shout out to Coach McAlpine in year 2 for getting Georgia to their first ever SEC East championship and then their first overall SEC championship. That is huge. So I'm with you, Coach. I didn't watch it. I had the updates on my phone, and when they hit that first one, I'm like, it's gonna happen. But then I watched the phone every time the phone went off. I'm like, just rooting for him. So that was
man,
fun.
what a weekend in Athens, right? The Ole Miss game, and then you've got soccer postseason at home, and you got basketball here as well. Like, fans need to show up for everything.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one. Speaking of this weekend, we're gonna wrap up here. This coming Saturday on this YouTube channel or this Facebook channel, we will have the Georgia Watch Along show with Coach Donnan and Dayne. We have a great time doing it. A lot of you I know are watching for the first time this evening. Don't forget to make a little note, put it in your phone, make a notification to watch the Georgia-Florida game. I mean, the Georgia-Ole Miss game with us. But basically what you do is you turn on the YouTube on your phone, your laptop, your iPad, tablet, whatever, and then you watch the game on your television. And then we will have a camera on Coach, and he will be giving you commentary throughout the game. great insight and great analysis, and we can't wait to have that watch along show with all of you this coming Saturday when they kick it off. So we'll see you then. For Coach Donnan, Dayne, and myself, we appreciate you guys. We went a little long today, but we appreciate everybody sticking with us. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.